Dalton, Illinois, small village on Chicago's south side that most people outside of Cook County had never even heard of. A place of working-class grit, tight-knit families, and the kind of generational pride that holds a community together, even when the politics crumble. But in May 2021, Dalton suddenly became more than just another name on the Illinois map. History went down. For the first time, Dalton elected a young black woman, Tiffany Henyard, to serve as mayor. She wasn't just a politician. She was a symbol, the first of her kind in the village's long history. When she stepped into office, the air was electric. People thought she was about to flip the whole script. Young, bold, and promising transformation, she represented possibility, empowerment. A break from the same tired cycle of small-town corruption and stagnation. Her campaign had sold a story, and the people bought it. They were ready for change. But here's the thing about storms. They can bring rain that nourishes, or they can rip roofs off houses. And Tiffany, she came in like a tornado. At first, there was hope. Dalton had waited a long time for someone who looked like Tiffany, who sounded like Tiffany, who could inspire the next generation. But fast forward just a few short years, and that hope was in ashes. Instead of becoming the hero of Dalton's story, Henyard became the headline, and not the good kind. Allegations began to swirl almost immediately. Residents started whispering, then shouting that Tiffany was treating Dalton's budget like her personal Amazon Prime account. We're not talking about infrastructure, school, programs, or public safety. No, the receipts that surfaced told a different story: hair bundles, designer sandals, luxury candles, cookware. While regular people in Dalton were struggling to pay rent and keep the lights on, the mayor was allegedly charging the village for shopping sprees and self-care luxuries. And when folks dared to call her out, Tiffany didn't sit back and reflect. She didn't offer explanations or accountability. She went on the attack. Village meetings turned into theater. Residents, most of them black, the very people who had believed in her, showed up to ask questions. Simple questions. Where's the money going? Why are services failing? Why does it look like the mayor is bawling while the town is broke? Instead of answers, they got venom. Tiffany would stand at the microphone and fire back, shouting, "Y'all should be ashamed. Y'all black and attacking a black woman that's empowered." It was a deflection strategy, dressed up as empowerment. But instead of quieting the storm, her outbursts just poured gasoline on the fire. The heat built. Investigations launched. Residents got louder. The national spotlight found Dalton. And eventually, after months of messy board meetings, lawsuits, and pure chaos, the shift came. Tiffany was out. Dalton swore in a brand new mayor, Jason House. And let me tell you, this wasn't some quiet backroom shuffle. This was a spectacle. City Hall was packed to the rafters. The streets buzzed with energy. You could feel the sense of release in the air, like a town finally exhaling after holding its breath for too long. When Jason House placed his hand on the Bible and promised to lead with honesty and integrity, the crowd erupted. One witness turned to a reporter and said, "We just watched our little village make national history." And they weren't lying. Dalton had gone from cautionary tale to case studies, meltdown becoming a lesson in both scandal and resilience. Jason's mission was clear but heavy: restore trust, clean up the mess, and rebuild what had been lost. And judging by how the community showed up for him, they were more than ready for a reboot. Meanwhile, Tiffany. She pivoted straight to Facebook. No apologies, no real answers, just selfies and motivational quotes like nothing had happened. The same woman who once pulled in over $347,000 a year, more than the governor of Illinois, suddenly had no paycheck, no perks, no power. And word on the street was brutal. She hadn't saved a dime. That's the reality of chasing power for the wrong reasons. When it's gone, it's gone. And if you didn't lead with integrity, there's nothing left to stand on. No team, no loyalty, no legacy. It's just silence. But here's the point. This isn't just Tiffany's downfall. It's a blueprint. Get a reminder of what happens when leadership becomes a hustle instead of a calling. And when the people finally decide enough is enough, it doesn't matter how. High you climbed, fall as fast and merciless. Because while Tiffany was out here performing for cameras and clout, other leaders were quietly doing the work. Folks like Edward Steve and Jason House, they weren't chasing headlines. They weren't trying to go viral. They were grinding, showing up, serving the community without applause. And here's the wild twist. Jason House didn't even want to be mayor at first. He had the chance for years back and walked away. Why? Because he didn't need a title to serve, didn't need credit to care. He was already showing up anyway. No cameras, no spotlight, just consistency. So when the scandals finally hit a breaking point and Dalton was gasping for real leadership, Jason was ready. He stood up, said enough, and the people listened. Dalton doesn't just owe Jason applause. They owe him gratitude. Because true leadership doesn't strut into meetings in designer heels with a camera crew. Sometimes it shows up in work. Boots ready to get dirty and do the hard work nobody else wants to do. Now, let's address the excuse that still floats around. You'll hear some folks argue that Tiffany failed because people didn't want to see a young black woman win. She was taken down by sexism and racism. But let's be honest, that argument is tired. Yes, identity matters. Breaking barriers matters. Representation inspires and motivates. But it's not a free pass. Being black, being a woman, being first hit might open the door. But what keeps you in the room is integrity, choices, and results. The community that elects you still needs action every single day. And in towns like Dalton, Montgomery, Jackson, or Atlanta, communities full of black pride and legacy, being black isn't a setback. It's a badge of honor. People want us to lead. But once we step into the seat, it's on us to deliver. The tragedy is that too many politicians win on dreams and then pivot to chasing clout. They forget why they were chosen. And when that happens, it's the people who pay the price. The residents who put them there are left with broken promises, higher bills, and communities stuck in the same cycle. That's why we have to raise the bar. Leadership is not a side hustle. It's not a stage to flex on. It's a responsibility. When a community hands you power, you don't stunt with it, you serve with it. You build, you protect, you honor. The trust that people place in you. Otherwise, we'll just keep watching the same tired movie play out. Leaders rise fast, crash faster, and the neighborhoods they swore to uplift get left behind in the rubble. And that's the real tragedy. Because Tiffany's story isn't just about Tiffany. It's about us all of Assand, what we demand from our leaders. When we cast a vote, we're not handing over a trophy. We're handing over a responsibility. A chance to lift, not to flex. To deliver, not to brag. Dalton just gave the country a masterclass in how fast betrayal gets exposed. Let Dalton be a warning. Watch who you vote in. Don't just clap during the campaign speech. Keep watching after they win. Because if your leader is chasing chaos and clout, their fall is guaranteed. And when it comes, it's brutal. The title disappears. The legacy turns to dust. All that's left is a social media feed full of selfies and a history nobody wants to remember. But the flip side is just as true. If you lead with purpose, if you stay grounded and real, your legacy will outlive you. That kind of leadership doesn't just build careers, it builds generations. It changes lives. The second you start believing you're above the people who put you in power, the countdown to collapse begins. And it comes quick. The money dries up. The followers fade. The cameras stop rolling. And speaking of collapse, let's not forget the subplot. Kamal Woods. Yes, it's that Kamal. The married man caught up in Tiffany's political fairy tale back when things looked shiny. When the checks were fat, the trips were lavish, and the press was glowing. But now, with the money gone and the spotlight dimmed, Kamal is nowhere to be found. You think he's sticking around for awkward dinners and overdue bills? Please, that man was never in it for Tiffany. He was in it for the perks, the ride, the image. And now that the ride is over, so is he and Tiffany. She's not just out of the mayor's seat. She's out of time, out of chances, out of backup. Because this is what happens when you treat public service like a hustle instead of a duty. Dalton woke up.
Right.
And once a community wakes up, they don't go back to sleep. Go back to sleep.